Start in the next session. User-generated Star is Born. And then again, we have our game session. We'll be ending the day around 4 o'clock. Thanks for staying with us. Wanted to just mention again that we produce a lot of other conferences. Many of you spoke to me. If you're interested in being a speaker or have an idea for a future topic or even a conference, just call our office at ihollywoodforum.com. Okay. I'd like to introduce Carly Mayberry, who is a digital media reporter for The Hollywood Reporter. Many of you know Chris Marlowe, who was there for about 5 years, who left for Sony. And we're delighted that Carly is now joining us to take Chris's place as moderating on digital media. And she's going to introduce the panelists.
Hi, I'm Carly Mayberry. I cover digital media for The Hollywood Reporter. Today we're going to spend a little time exploring the rise of user-generated content on the web and what that means for the traditional role of Hollywood. Recently, we've seen more and more partnerships between talent agencies and internet companies. To name one, United Talent Agency recently partnered with website VO. The William Morris Agency partnered with the company NarrowStep just 3-4 days ago. So we clearly see a trend in this area. So the question remains, what does the rise of user-generated talent mean for talent, for brands, for creators of programming content, and the audience that consumes that content? So first off, let me introduce our first panelist, Scott of Spot DJ. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I'm Scott Klepper from Spot DJ. Spot DJ is a service that adds a sense of personality to digital music. So for example, the way it works is you listen to your music as normal. If you're listening to a track, at the end of that track, you might hear a clip of the artist telling you some news or telling you what the track's about, telling you they have a new album or something like that. Or you may hear a user-generated comment, someone telling maybe their personal story about that song or some interesting fact that they know. So we're all about not changing the way you listen to music, but just adding a sense of personality to it.
Okay, and our next panelist would be Cara Welker of Generate.
Hi, Generate is a company that's a talent management and content company. And in our content company, we have a multi-platform content development division. And we also have a film and television division. So we're producing and creating all different kinds of content. And we also have a talent management company where we manage, writers, directors, talent of all kinds.
And next is Eric Smith of Meta Cafe.
Good afternoon, everyone. I work at a company called Meta Cafe. Meta Cafe is a video sharing website. We have about 22 million visitors coming to our site every single month, generating hundreds of millions of page views. What we do is we work with a pretty large user community, and all the videos that are on our site have to be voted on to our site by our user community. And the videos that do well do very well, and a lot of our creators actually get paid for having content up on our site. And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure.
And last is Scott Swanson of Vitru.
Hi, I'm Scott Swanson. Vitru is a user-generated video and social networking platform for brands. So what that means is we work with folks like the Cincinnati Bengals, TBS, VH1 to create engaging user experiences where consumers can upload video of them in some kind of talent. In a lot of cases, it's people playing songs or cracking jokes. And interact and engage with a brand in a different way, specifically around contests.
Okay, I think we'll start with Cara with all these recent so-called discoveries on the web. My first question would be, what do you look for when considering popular talent for the online platform, and how do you judge the potential of talent to have a sustainable career?
Usually what I'm looking for when I look at talent online, I'm looking at things like, the basic longevity of an idea. Is it just a one-off, or is it developable into another form of idea? Not necessarily film or television, but predominantly film and television. And, does it have a life off the web? A lot of times we're, looking at things that are kind of created by like a multi-hyphenate, basically. Did they write, create, produce their own thing, or is it just a person putting a camera on themselves and doing something stupid? It's usually something that has more development behind it that's more interesting to us, because then we can really sink our teeth into it a little bit more, because there's more brains behind it.
And what are your opinions regarding internet talent discovered on the internet, making that transition to traditional media?
In a lot of cases, and with talent that we've found off the web, a really good example is maybe our client Andy Milanakis, who we literally did discover off the web a few years ago when he had a pretty viral little vignette that went around called "The Super Bowl is Gay," which at the time I was a producer on Jimmy Kimmel Live, and we worked together with Jimmy to bring that concept to MTV and develop a show literally based on the actual content that as it existed on the web. So a lot of times we're moving both ways, though. Sometimes things start off as a TV idea and then we move it into the broadband space, but a lot of times too we're just mining stuff from the internet and developing it into a television idea based on, the merit and idea that's.
Okay. Eric, I'm wondering how you would define what engaging content on the web actually is.
That's a tough question, because I think everybody has a different level of what's engaging to them. A lot of what's on the web today, particularly on our site, it kind of falls into two camps. It's either kind of funny stuff that someone happened to capture because they just happened to be in the right place at the right time, or it's stuff that's staged that has either a dramatic effect or a comedy effect. So I think both of those things are interesting. We had a kind of a interesting thing happened to us this week. If you guys have heard about the guy who has the beer can launcher, he's an inventor from Duke, and he invented this thing where you can kind of sit, you kind of sit at the couch and you watch TV and you hit a button and a robot shoots a beer to you and he catches it perfectly. So, again, I'm not sure how, actually cool that is, but it is really cool, and the way that it's staged, it looks very interesting. That video on our site has been viewed just in a short amount of time, thousands and thousands of times, and that guy, or tens of thousands of times, and that guy is now scheduled to be on David Letterman. He was in Colbert's monologue last night. He was in Jay Leno's monologue. So you look at those kind of things where this guy was just out trying to show off this invention that he made, and he did it in a kind of an entertaining way, put it up on the web, and then all of a sudden now it's being streamed a lot of different places. And as he put it on our site, we pay a $5 CPM. So he's made, I think he's made $6,000 in a week just on people watching that video. So, for him, he wasn't out to make $6,000. He'll make a lot more than that, but he wasn't out to make $6,000 right off the bat. But in a short amount of time, he's going to be on national television, and he's getting paid.
That kind of is a good segue to my next question for you. I know that MetaCafe rewards creators, and it seems like that's really important to MetaCafe. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So our model on that is we pay a $5 CPM. If somebody has some content that they own the rights to, the key thing is they have to own the rights to everything that's in there. The music, they can't go rip something off of TV and put it in there, any of that stuff. They have to own the rights. But if they own the rights and they distribute it, give us the rights to distribute it in the producer rewards program, we'll pay them a $5 CPM. We have a guy, Joe Igo, who's a martial artist in Toronto, who put together something called The Real Matrix, and it's him, he would get up on that balcony and jump and land on one of the tables and somehow do a flip from table to table and disappear through the door without the door opening. That thing has been viewed so many times that he's made almost $30,000 off of that. And again, it's one of those things where he shot it just because he had a cool skill, and then over time it got to be a virally distributed product, and now it's, he's made a decent amount of money for us.
So
we just did a deal right here. So
we're developing that.
I'm just curious, should traditional network concerned about MetaCafe?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where I think it's a little too early to tell. I mean, we all look at Lonely Girl as, this big phenomenon, and, I still haven't seen her on TV yet. So I'm not saying it won't happen, but, it's going to take some time, above and beyond the time when she was on a little bit ago.
Although there was a cast member that was just cast to Mad TV, and they discovered her strictly through online efforts. I don't remember which site she was on, maybe all of them. Does anybody know? Yeah.
She's on YouTube.
Lisa Nova, that's
Lisa,
right.
On
Yeah.
YouTube. Yeah.
She was just on YouTube.
She posts on YouTube.
So she's off YouTube.
Scott, we'll turn to you now. Spot DJ is all about blending user-generated content with traditional media, and so I'm wondering what drives people to use the service and to be engaged?
Sure. I think it's exactly that we're, some of the earlier panels kind of touched on this, are things moving from traditional developed media to user-generated content, and our product really isn't like that. We're recognizing that there's lots of value in a track that you download, but that there's more to music than just that track. So, for example, let's see, last week there was an Iraq war vet who was on Spot DJ and recorded some spots about the songs that he and his group, what do you call it? Anyway, the troops were listening to in Iraq, and told some stories about the people he was with, and his buddies who had died and their favorite songs, stuff like that. And it's amazing that you can listen to a song that you've heard hundreds of times before, and all you need is a little piece of content at the end that's new, and you see that song in a completely different way.
And do you see the services going beyond like the marketing aspect into, discovering the next platinum selling album, or?
Yeah. Another thing that we're doing is engaging artists and using Spot DJ kind of as their way of staying in touch with their fans. So there are kind of two things that will sort of help, songs and artists become more popular through Spot DJ. One is that artists can go on the service and can directly talk to their fans no matter how they acquired that track. So if you got this track by downloading it illegally, someone gave it to you, you're streaming it, you're just playing a preview, whatever, you can hear from that artist, and by hearing that, you get sort of more of a sense of their personality, and you learn more about them, and you hopefully buy more tracks through them. The other thing is that sort of these rabid fans that artists tend to have, they populate message boards and blogs and stuff like that, but they're not really reaching out to people beyond that community. So with Spot DJ, you can hear the passion in people's voice when they're talking about, their favorite artist, and that's really engaging. If you're not as familiar with that artist, to hear somebody else talking about it.
Scott from Bitrue, I know you guys have done promotions with VH1 and TBS, and I'm just wondering how important is it to engage the consumer with the brands?
Well, engagement is that ever-present lucrative thing that is getting to chief marketing officers saying, figure this out. How do we engage with consumers now? How do we create a more compelling offering for consumers to interact with our brand? We believe at Bitrue that we're entering a new age for marketing and for interaction in general. We call it the age of authenticity. It's where consumers don't trust brands. They don't trust being force-fed stuff by brands. But they also want to engage and help build brands in a way that has them produce products and services that meet their needs. So in interest of that, we're having people help build brands. Procter & Gamble's CEO said, our brands are now being built by our consumers. And we went live last week with a promotion with Procter & Gamble for Pringles called Jingles for Pringles. So the new Pringles theme song is going to be written by consumers. That's one of the ways that we're seeing engagement work.
Any other examples of like performances by different brands? Or?
Yeah, probably my favorite user-generated star that we've kind of produced to date was for a brand called Planet Smoothie. Planet Smoothie's a smoothie chain, and they wanted to find a new mascot for their Cup Man. That's the guy that runs around the country in a cup and a cup mobile and stuff like that. This guy that was immensely talented, reminded me a lot of Jack Black, wrote this song called I Want to Be Your Cup Man. And it sounds and got viral, and he became a big star and launched his own blog, and now he's out being Planet Smoothie's Cup Man. So in that case, we launched a user-generated star, although for now anyway, the brand themselves get to keep him as their mascot.
Cara, we'll turn to you now. I'm wondering what your views are regarding talent discovered on the internet making the transition to traditional entertainment.
A lot of our clients that we work with and a lot of people that we've found on the internet and developed into TV shows, a good example, just kind of following off what you're talking about, is a group called Improv Everywhere, which is this New York-based, I'd call it a comedy movement, but it's basically, you know, a guy who out of a, you know, improv group in New York, basically using the internet, began to perpetrate public pranks and stunts and then posting them on the internet, and that developed thousands and thousands of minions who help him perpetrate public pranks. And then, you know, using that website and that concept, we've now translated that into a pilot for NBC. But that's just a good example of kind of using something that really developed, you know, to gain a mass audience on the web to, you know, move it into the television space, basically. So that's, you know, there's a lot of examples of it, but that's sort of my favorite and most current one.
The process producing for broadband different than for producing for television?
That's a good question. It's different in the fact that, well, it's thousands of dollars different. So usually to produce broadband, you're working with, you know, really minimal budgets. Like the biggest budget I think I've seen to date is probably about, you know, $25,000, and that felt like a luxurious deal. But, you know, when we're working in television, we have, you know, mass infrastructures and much bigger budgets, and, you know, it's a different ball of wax. But usually with, you know, creation of content for the internet, it's more of a kind of run and gun and no budget operation.
And how would you say Generate differs from a traditional talent agency?
Well, we are different in the sense that we have two companies functioning as one, and we have a full functioning content creation company, and through that company we've invested in our own camera and lighting and post facilities, which our clients are free to use to create and generate their own content in any shape, be it for a, you know, pilot presentation or be it just for something to post and create on their own. We also, through our content division, which is separate from the management company, have a large multi-platform deal with MTV Networks, and we have a film deal with Warner Brothers. So we work on, you know, all platforms, and that benefits our clients when it needs to, and when it doesn't, doing other things with everybody else.
Okay, wow. So I was going to ask Scott Swanson, do you think TV advertisers should be concerned about companies like VidTrue?
Should TV advertising be concerned?
Right.
I don't think so. You know, I saw a speaker for an automobile company, I forget, Audi, and he was talking about online becoming the hub of a larger marketing vehicle. So the interactions can occur online, but the promotion of you know, that interactive hub can happen through television, billboards, radio, all those other vehicles. Television still has massive reach. And, you know, in the case of TBS, in the case of now Pringles, they're promoting it during American Idol. They're using television to drive people to these interactive experiences, and I think that's still legitimate. I think it is shifting, though.
Wow, okay. And Scott Klepper, people becoming more engaged with traditional media through user-generated content. What do you think is driving them to do that and to experience music now in a different way, which is what Spot DJ allows them?
A number of things. I think there's evidence that some people just like to get their voice out, like to be heard, and that's what's behind blogs and MySpace pages. There's also a genuine feeling that music is what brings people together, and people who otherwise have little in common, you know, if they like the same songs, they have something to talk about. So I think it's about sharing knowledge, finding other people that are connected to you through music, and also just, you know, promoting yourself and promoting the music that you like.
Any examples of some of the more unique?
Yeah, there are a couple examples. For example, there's, let's see, two teenage girls I think they're here in LA, that had a local access cable show where they talked about music, and for whatever reason they lost their show. I don't know if they lost funding or whatever, but they're starting to do stuff on Spot DJ where they can reach you know, people anywhere listening to the music that they're talking about. So they're kind of conveying their personalities, and that's kind of it's a surprise to us that that way. When we first started this, we thought it would be mostly sort of anonymous people just giving factual information, sort of like a pop-up video or behind the music or something like that. But what's really most interesting is when people's personality come out and they tell you stories and they tell you jokes and
what do you think drives people to take the time to do?
Ego. It's a lot of things. I think that it's just one of those things where there are lots of stories, and people have a lot to say about it. And really, up until now, there hasn't been a way to do that within the music itself. Every other online music-related service is about taking the music context and completely switching context and going to a MySpace page or a blog. And Spot DJ is an opportunity to say, we want to talk about music along with the music itself.
There seem to be no shortage of aspiring musicians either, right?
That's true. Yeah, and musicians who don't really have a voice anywhere. So they don't just want you to hear their song because they posted on their MySpace page. They want to tell you about it, and they want you to know about who they are and why their band has that name and what their influences were and stuff like that. So we're an outlet for that.
Eric, is there anything else you anything you want to say about upcoming Meta Cafe deals?
Sure. I mean, Meta Cafe today is all user-generated content, and part of what I'm there to do is to help kind of look at user-generated stuff, but also look at branded stuff. You know, a lot of what's on the other video sharing sites, and a little bit on ours, but we try to be good citizens, but a lot of what's on other sites is copyrighted material. And obviously that copyrighted material doesn't fly. We all read in the paper what, you know, Viacom and YouTube are tussling about. So, you know, that's going to continue to happen. So, you know, there's one of two ways. You either do it legally or you do it illegally. And so I think if you look at kind of what we all need to do in the space, if we have copyrighted content on there, we need to either remove it or go work directly with the rights holders to come up with an offering that works for everybody. You know, this new medium is, you know, the companies need to partner together and go out and reach the consumers. You know, I don't think the appropriate business model is when a partner makes money off of, you know, another partner. I think, you know, we're about making money off consumers. And so looking at what that business model is and how to support that, I think is something you'll see, you know, all the companies look at doing this year. We're launching something on Monday, so thank you for asking, which we did, with Stephen Bochco. Stephen Bochco, obviously a very traditional television producer, NYPD Blue and others, has gone out and created a show for Meta Cafe, and it's like a video confession booth, and he's going asking people, what was your worst day, what was your best, you know, what was your worst job, you know, all these different things. And he went and he selected just some random people here in LA, not actors, and he filmed them and cut it up and did all the different things. And then we're encouraging our community to go through and create their own answers to what, you know, the best date or worst date or, you know, most drunk they ever were or whatever. Mm-hmm. This stuff is pretty edgy. And the sponsor of that is American Apparel. So we brand sponsor that made sense for this edgy kind of content. You have a respected television producer coming in and you know, getting it started and funneling some initial content to the offering, and then at the end he's going to judge who submits the best content, and then or provide some information on who submits the best content, and then our user community will decide who wins. So, you know, very much an American Idol kind of model, but, you know, targeted entirely on the web, and that content will only live on Meta Cafe until it gets virally distributed. But the voting and all that stuff happens on our site.
And just quickly to that point too, using the Stephen Bochco example, it doesn't matter necessarily how big or small the talent is. They all have pet projects and ideas that they want to get out there and get their voices heard. And, you know, this medium offers a way for people to get that little thing out that's always been an idea in the back of their head forever, even though they're a huge showrunner or writer or a big star of any kind.
Yeah, he could never get that on regular traditional television because the content's edgy. It's not stuff that he does, but the internet is a perfect place for that kind of stuff. And you think about every single, you know, person who's involved in television or movies, they all have these little projects that, you know, may not make sense on a massive scale in the traditional media, but definitely makes sense in something like this.
And going back to what Scott was saying earlier, I think it's also such a great example for brands to figure out how to do branded entertainment with guys like that and put new ideas out there that come in the form of entertainment as opposed to just plain old advertising.
And that completes the circle, because in this model, and just as Scott's doing with his stuff, they're involving the users. So the users are going through and not just passively looking at an ad, they're going through and participating in this environment, using that Web 2.0 technology that's out there to upload videos, have them be voted on, all the other different things. So again, it becomes almost like a 360 marketing campaign for these guys, because they can touch them in a lot of different places.
And it can also be used in the opposite way, too. There's a group that I work with called White, which is a comedy troupe out of New York, who met with a very large beer company who, the beer company wanted to get some really funny ideas from really fun young talent, and inevitably stole one of their ideas, which was something that was already on the internet, which that allowed that group to then post, here's our sketch, here's what aired during the Super Bowl, and they were able to kind of, show the world that, these big companies can steal from the little guy, and, got their message a different way, too.
It's so interesting, given that, this year was the year that there were 4, I think, user-generated video ads created by users, and then this large beer company that you're referring to.
And then there was the stolen one.
The stolen one.
The slapping one.
Yeah.
Cara, speaking to that, regarding talent and early adopters of the online platform, how has success from those that have had success with that impacted how the entertainment community will view this jump from online to more traditional?
There's so many different ways that it's impacted. I mean, the early adopters basically, I predominantly work in the comedy space with talent, and the way that it's really affected our business is it's really kind of come to us, because back in the 90s, we used to have to show talent live and put up things on stage and, show things that way, and that was traditionally how we got traditional development deals and film deals, showcasing things, and now this provides a different platform for showcasing ideas and also kind of diversifying those ideas, because there's things you can shoot that you can't do live. But by the same token, for those people who have a business, for example, that's like a touring business, if it's a stand-up comic or something like that, the early adopters have become very successful in kind of growing their fan bases massively, and I think in return we've seen things like stand-up comedy really come back in a big way, where would never play the Wiltern 4 years ago are now all of a sudden selling out 2 nights in a row at the Wiltern, or things like that. But I also think the industry in general is really responding to the way things get distributed now, in the sense that if something's becoming popular on the internet, they have to pay attention to that and look at the idea and look at the talent and figure out, is this an idea that we can make into a grander idea that's right for a sitcom or a half-hour show or a 1-hour show. So I think they're forced to kind of address what the audience is saying they want.
How does it change the management process of talent?
Well, in some ways it's made it much easier to get someone's point of view and worldview out there as it is. And the one thing that is always frustrating about developing in traditional media is that you're forced to deal with things like abundant notes and cuts and, unwanted suggestions and what have you. And being able to, develop something on the internet allows us basically to develop the idea and distill it down to what the artist's true vision is. And it's, forces the industry to say, we're buying what you're showing us. And of course there's always going to be adjustments, but I think, it basically allows the artist to be able to stick to what they're originally trying to get across.
Well, I think I'm ready to open it up to questions from the audience.
Have all your questions been answered, or are you mostly The Walking Dead after lunch? I always find, at least you're here. That's always a good sign. If you're on a plane someplace, it means we haven't done our job.
Hi, I'm Shelley Crockett from Warner Independent. I have a question for Cara and for Eric. Cara, do you typically find your talent before they go viral, or do you actually get them once they're up on the net? And Eric, I was just also wondering what, for MetaCafe, do you spread it virally for your people, or can they put it up on YouTube and it's just MetaCafe tags?
No. So as far as finding talent, we have this user community, and it's about 100,000 people that are volunteer reviewers of our technology. So, I'm sorry, of our content. So when when a clip comes up, it gets downloaded to this client that these people have downloaded. And they go through and they look at it, and they do two things. The first thing they do is they remove any objectionable content. So we don't have any porn on our site. It's just ferreted out before it ever even makes it close to the site. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is they remove uninteresting content. So one of the things that's really different about MetaCafe is that, we could film, my birthday party, and that might be interesting to 6 people. And I can put that up on YouTube, and those 6 people can go to that. That would never make it on MetaCafe. It has to be interesting to a large range of people. So that community kind of helps us surface the best content up to the top. So that's one of the first things that we do. But we want to encourage people to embed MetaCafe stuff at as many places as possible. Even the stuff that we do with producer rewards, we don't sign an exclusive right for them to be able to only put it on our site. Now the guy, back to the beer launcher example, he only wants to talk about MetaCafe because I'm the only one that's paying him. So while he gets exposure on YouTube, he's not making any money. And so when he goes on Letterman, he'll somehow try to find a way to work the MetaCafe thing in there. And what they're talking about doing, which is kind of interesting, is showing the video and then having him take the beer launcher and either launch other things with it, kind of interesting, or doing some kind of target practice. So he's taking this video that he has and then moving it and doing other different things with it.
Other questions? Actually, I had one. I came in a little late, so if you've already asked this, just tell me to shut up. But this deal with UTA and with VO and with Michael Eisner and so forth that's been highly touted, you guys are all familiar with it, right? I assume? Is that a flash in the pan, or is that the wave of the future for recruiting talent?
I think you kind of have to split the difference on it. I don't think it's a flash in the pan because I don't think this is going anywhere. I think this is a real thing that everybody has to really pay attention to, and I think what VO's doing is really interesting, and I also think the way UTA is mining for talent is really interesting too, and I think in the process they're coming across some really good, decent, legitimate stuff. And these are people who have vast experience in traditional media, and much the same way you would scout traditional talent applies to how you scout for talent, in this regard. So I think that it's something that we will obviously see evolve and change, and I think you'll see a lot of things kind of distill down to what is really good. And of course, there seems to be a mad scramble to kind of get everything, but by the same token, I think the cream will rise to the top, and the rest will kind of flow away. Just they're obviously doing their own kind of audience testing, but the audience is its own testing ground as well, and they'll discover what they want to see.
And UTA is not the only one that's doing this. I mean,
everybody's doing
it. Everybody has
or at least every agency.
Every agency is certainly looking at this, and we've had lots of discussions with a variety of different people.
Yeah, I think anytime there's an efficiency in the market, if you don't have to go to a comedy club to find talent, you could pull up your computer and survey the market for different talent, and it's here to stay.
Okay, good. Any more questions from the audience? Oh, one over here. Could I ask, by the way, that the Games and Community panel begin to kind of move up to the front so that we can seamlessly move on? Can I see hands from Games and Community? Are you here? Okay, so one person's here. I'm going to be giving a soliloquy.
Oh, you're good. Oh.
Hi. The question I had is, when you look for talent, are you looking for the next, like this guy, the next beer launcher thing, or are you looking for people that might have genuine talent to be in Hollywood, let's say, or the next actor, or whatever?
We're looking for engaging content, period. It doesn't matter what it is. To date, it's been because I don't think people have effectively cracked the drama, in a 3-minute vignette yet. But that doesn't mean it won't happen. I mean, you have to look at, at the end of the day, what's entertaining. And, a lot of the user-generated content out there today is kind of like, the cat falling off the couch. Funny, but not very memorable, number one. And number two, it's very hard to put an ad in front of that.
I signed that cat.
I know. Well, okay, you're welcome. But I think that, over time, the people who know how to tell stories and know how to shoot good video and know how to make things compelling and interesting, those are what are going to overtake, I think, and sit, maybe not overtake, but sit right alongside the cat falling off the couch, so that you'll have true user-generated content, but you'll also have professionally produced content, and those things live together. And I think that's really where this thing's going over time.
Yeah, I think ultimately what people really want to see for the most part is good storytelling.
Absolutely.
And good, compelling characters, be it comedic and eventually be it dramatic, however that makes its way through.
And music, too. You know, music is a huge component of this.
That's
A lot of stars have been born, at least in the efforts that we've done. You know, I passed around the Cupman audition, and all my friends had it stuck in their head. You know, that's very memorable. It's more memorable than a cat falling off the couch.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the hard part about the user-generated stuff, is it's very, very quick. It's here and then it's gone. And you have to be entertained. You know, and the thing that's interesting about it is, you know, this stuff starts to try to top each other. You know, and that's an interesting thing to think about is, you know, where do we go? You know, stuff that was entertaining a year ago, you look at now and go, you know, what is this? This is silly. So I think that's another kind of, you know, challenge in this space. But, you know, at the end of the day, users like to interact in this manner. And so you've got an audience there. Now it's up to the content community to go through and entertain them above and beyond just, you know, giving them silly stuff.
For those of us old enough to remember the first internet boom, is back then one of the fallacies, I think, certainly in Silicon Valley, was, well, we're going to come in and we're going to just basically drive the studios out of business. It was so stupid. In fact, it was the main reason I started doing seminars, because we kept on having all these conferences with people from Silicon Valley saying, you know, we're putting you out of business. And what's interesting about this is what I'm hearing is two parallel universes that are beginning to intersect, if that makes sense. I never did well in math. Do we have any other?
I think we learned our lessons the first time.
What's that?
I said, I think we learned our lessons the first time. You know, in the early internet boom, there was no business model. There's a business model around everything that we're doing. All of us are up here to make money. We're not up here to say, we'll put something up and we'll figure it out 10 years from now. You know, all of us have something that we're.
What's interesting is that the students perhaps are more in that boat. They have business models, but they're certainly not business models that will sustain them. I mean, they're not even single digits, the revenue. Any last questions? Okay, thank you so much, Carly, and thank you to the panel.
Thank you.
I love you with some of your stuff. I love it.
Yeah.